All right, good evening. Welcome to Under the Dome. This is the inaugural episode of this podcast. My name is Alan Ulrich. Been a Saints fan since 1973. Saw the best of times, and I've seen lots and lots of the worst of times. Uh, we hope to have a good show for you tonight. We're going to do a little preview of the team. The worst of times. We hope to have a good show. Got a little echo there. I'm sorry about that. We hope to have a good show for you guys. And let me go ahead and start by introducing my partner here, Mr. Sean. Go ahead, Sean.
Thanks, Alan. How are you tonight?
I'm doing good. Doing good.
Man, this is the culmination of 2 years of work for us. What started out as just a vision is coming to light tonight. Glad to have you with me on this journey. My name is Sean Williams. Everybody calls me Taz. I cover the Saints for ProFootballSpot.com, and I'm also the NFC West Division Coordinator for PFS. We're very happy and very proud to be coming to you live tonight for the premiere of the Under the Dome podcast. We want to thank Fan First Productions for getting behind us on this project and making it possible for us to come to you tonight. And we encourage you all to follow us on Facebook, on the Under the Dome podcast page, on Twitter at Under the Dome PO1, or you can email us and contact the show through underthedomepodcast@gmail.com. Now, getting straight to business. Today, Alan, we had some roster moves. You want to discuss that?
Yeah, two guys got put on. One was put on a physically unable to perform list, the PUP list as it's called, and the other one is on the non-football injury list. Avery Young, the tackle out of Auburn, undrafted rookie. Some guy I'm hoping has a good camp because I'd like to see him become our starting left guard after playing left tackle over at Auburn. He is on the non-football injury list, which basically means he did something during this month off they've had, and whenever he's ready to pass the physical, he can be pulled off this list and can start practicing, but it's just a designation they put him in. The other player, I believe, is DJ Wyrick? Petway. Thank you, Petway.
Middle linebacker from Alabama.
Right.
Undrafted free agents.
Okay. Yeah, he's on the physically unable to perform list, which just means he can't pass a physical, so he is going to start the season on this PUP list, and again, he can get pulled off at any time. So it's not a panic move. Don't anybody get worried. It's not injury reserve or recallable injury reserve. It's something that, players just go through in training camp. We've had this before. Just wait it out. Don't panic yet.
Okay, Alan, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
We want to, tonight, kind of set the stage for training camp, which begins a week from today in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia at the Greenbrier facility. And to do that, we want to go through the roster basically position by position and discuss what we have, maybe feature some of the intriguing positional battles that we might have in training camp.
I think the best thing to do. Oh, go ahead. I was going to say I think the best thing to start doing is let's start with just position by position. Start with the offense and look at the quarterbacks. I mean, obviously, Drew Brees, he's got this as a starter, so we know what he can do. The real battle really is the backup position. Luke McCown versus Garrett Grayson. Luke McCown, we've seen so far, pretty much he could come in for you for a couple games, start. You shouldn't see that big of a drop in the offense. We saw that in Carolina last year where he almost won the game, managed the game extremely well. Something that, Saints fans have always worried about, what happens if Drew goes down. I think we're pretty safe with McCown. It's Garrett Grayson, the second-year player, we really have to be concerned about, because this is an important camp for him. I don't know how much growth he's shown so far. I was reading something yesterday, in fact, saying that in the mini camp OTAs he looked pretty solid, but in the mini camps, with his no pads on, no pressure on him, he kind of was a little erratic. You know, he was doing all the things that he was doing in college, holding the ball down too low, failing to make his reads right away, letting the ball, sail on him, so he was wildly inaccurate. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does in camp this year. What do you think, Sean?
Do you foresee any scenario where the Saints would wind up keeping Grayson and cutting McCown loose?
No. I
don't either, but I get asked that question quite a bit.
I'll tell you, unless Garrett Grayson just totally blows away, preseason, I can't see it happening, because of what we saw at McCown last year and the way he was able to manage the game without a big drop-off, I just can't see Grayson being the only number 2 guy. And I know why people are asking about this, because when you start doing the math of the roster, if you're already tying up 3 quarterbacks, that cuts down the number of receivers you can have, cuts down the number of running backs you can have. So, we've gone with 2 before, but Garrett Grayson's.
And I think it's important to mention the numbers that you have to reserve for your receivers and for your running backs and for your linemen. Those are numbers that you're going to use. Those are numbers and players that you're going to make use of. You're holding on to 3 quarterbacks. You're only going to use one of those unless it's a doomsday scenario somewhere down along the line.
Well, before they changed the inactive list, you used to be able to carry that 3rd quarterback, and it didn't count really against your roster or your inactive list. You just say, okay, 3rd guy, inactive, it's good. I can run with 2 quarterbacks. You don't have that luxury anymore. Now that guy counts towards your roster, and it makes it a little more difficult for you to start juggling your numbers. Again, it's just basic math. So let's look at the running backs, for example. Okay? Mark Ingram has got a job. That we're probably going to keep C.J. Spiller as your 3rd down specialty back. And Tim Hightower more than proved that he can ready to play as a 2nd string back. So you got 3 backs right there. Saints have been keeping 4. So now you've got, 4 guys basically battling for that 4th spot. The biggest names.
You'll likely have a running back on special teams returns.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Marcus Murphy and Daniel Lasco, the 7th-round pick, those are your top 2 that are going to be battling for that 4th spot. Now, where do undrafted guys fit in, if any? We've traditionally gotten undrafted guys who made the team. You start going through Pierre Thomas, Chris Ivory, Tavares Cadet, players like that who've made the team. Kyrie Robinson, right, who've made the team as undrafted free agents. Who is going to be the undrafted free agent this year? And that just makes that 4th spot even tighter. And we still haven't even talked about a fullback, if a fullback even makes the roster this year.
That brings up another point I wanted to ask you. It seems nowadays that there's 2 schools of thinking. You either have the tight end fullback set, or you have what they used to call the H-back,
right,
who plays kind of a hybrid of the 2. Which are you in favor of in terms of this offense?
In this offense, I think it's going to be the H-back. What Sean Payton really wants as a fullback, he wants a Tom Rathman. He wants a guy who is a blocker, who can run the short yardage, and can also go out for passes, because he wants to get as many receivers as he can out there to catch Drew Brees' passes, look for his matchups, isolate matchups, and then just move the chains.
Sure.
The closest you got to a Rathman kind of back was when we had Heath Evans here, because Heath Evans was a good receiver. Heath Evans was old. He got injured in 2009. He got injured again in 2010. So what you've seen now is you've seen him incorporate more of an H-back kind of guy. Jake Collins was a good fullback for us. He did a lot of the short yardage stuff. He just wasn't as good of a receiver as what Sean likes, which is why he's not here anymore. So I think, Hooman, who's your mama, Hushmanzada, whatever you say his name.
Nui.
I just call him Hooman because
the only way I can say it is to say it really slow.
There you go.
Nui.
I just wish Buddy D was still alive because I would love to have heard him butcher that name. But yeah, I mean, Hooman is really going to be your H-back kind of guy. If you've ever paid attention to those routes that Josh Hill has run, where he comes across motion, looks like he's lining up as the fullback, and then kind of just comes out kind of a curl route out there, and they hit him in a flat, and he just kind of takes it, like a little flare pass. That is ideally what he likes to do with his fullbacks, is playing his tight end playing a fullback, that H-back kind of route. So it's going to be interesting to see. Does he make that team? Does he make that? Does he go with a fullback, or does he go with just 3 tight ends or 4th tight end? Where's that number going to be? Because your tight ends, Fleener's your number 1 guy. That's going to be your Jimmy Graham type of receiving tight end. Josh Hill's probably going to make this team because they paid him a lot of money to keep going to the Bears. So that's going to be your blocking tight end. So you've got Hooman now as your H-back 3rd tight end. Do they go with a 4th tight end, or they keep an extra lineman to kind of play that short yardage, pound the ball in for first downs or touchdowns?
I think that a lot of that will be decided as the offensive line comes together in the preseason. How they start to shake out a little bit will go a long way towards determining that. Right. I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Jack Tabb was somebody that Hokie Gajan really liked because he was a good, hard blocking tight end. Well, they let him go before training camp is even here. So it's going to be interesting to see if the basketball player Chris Manhertz, what kind of development does he show this year? Garrett Griffin, who is the Air Force tight end, I'm not quite sure if he's on the roster yet or not. I know they got that commitment issue going on.
He has to get a full release from the service before he can be added, correct?
Right. So there's kind of a...
And the Air Force doesn't typically do that.
No. I think this is going to be like a Roger Staubach kind of thing. This is going to be a guy you're going to have to hold on until he finishes his service.
The last one that I remember was a guy that played with the Cowboys. I want to say Chad Henning. Defensive lineman.
I'm trying to remember. I think you're right. No, I don't remember. Yeah, I think that's right, because right now I've got the Chad Henning quarterback from Michigan in my head, and that's not him. I know, but
no, that's Chad. That's Chad Henne. This is Henning.
Yes, I know. So, again, the tight end position is going to be interesting to see. I think I'm looking to watch Chris Manhertz this year. I want to see if they have anything in him, because he's a former basketball player, like Jimmy Graham.
I know he's got huge size. I saw a photo of him the other day, the whole receiving core around Drew Brees, and this guy looked like he could be an offensive lineman.
Right.
Manhertz.
But he is unbelievably raw. I mean, Graham played 1 year of football at Miami. The other basketball players like Tony Gonzalez and the guy out there in San Diego, can't believe I'm forgetting his name, Antonio Gates. They had football experience before they got into the NFL. This guy here has none. So I'm really curious to see what kind of development, if any, he has this year. So that's going to be a fun guy to watch.
Sure.
The other battle that's going to be incredible to watch is wide receiver, because just like running back, you've got a whole group of guys basically fighting for one spot. Because your top 3 are going to be Brandon Cooks, Willie Snead, and Michael Thomas. So Brandon Coleman's spot's the one that's up for grab. he has the lead right now. But you've got R.J. Harris, Jared Dangerfield, the Vincent Brown from San Diego. Coleman obviously fighting for his own spot, and anybody else they bring in during camp, all fighting for a fourth spot, because even if the Saints keep 5 receivers, they only activate 4 on game day. So one's always inactive. Who gets that last spot? Who gets an opportunity to play? And I think you're going to see in the second half of those preseason games a lot of guys trying to make plays, and that's what you have to watch. Garrett Grayson, the running backs, and those wide receivers. What do they do in that spot? And who can play special teams? Because we're assuming Lasco or Murphy are going to be the kick returners, but there's nothing in there that says a receiver can't take it.
To be honest with you, I think that the special team returner job is Cadets to lose, based on the end of the season last year.
Okay, so then again, 4 backs. Where does Cadet fit in with Lasco, who is really a gunner more so than a returner?
Yeah.
And Murphy. So you're saying Cadet and Murphy are fighting for those spots. So again, another interesting battle to see. And the battle which everyone is talking about is offensive line. Who are you going to be?
Oh, I think in a large sense of thinking, the very complexion of this season is going to be largely dependent on how that shapes up.
Right, because right now, if the Saints had to play a game right now, your starting 5 are Armstead, Lolito, Unger, Pete, and Strief. And that gives some people hives thinking about Pete and Strief out there, and Lolito. And the Saints fired their offensive line coach and brought in a new coach because Sean must have felt that he did not see the development out of Pete and the development out of Lolito and even Clemente that the Saints needed to become a solid offensive line. Pro Football Weekly, Pro Football Focus's garbage numbers aside, this was not the 5th-rated offensive line in the NFL. Not by a long shot. You watch that Redskins and Eagles games, that was not a great offensive line.
Like you and I were discussing the other night, they had Zach Strief in the top 10 of offensive tackles for the season. That says a lot for their credibility.
You're right.
I love the player that Strief has been. I love the contribution that he's made to this team.
Right.
But so, as we've seen with Pierre Thomas, Jonathan Vilma, Colston, sooner or later, all of those storied careers come to an end.
Right, as Mike Detillier always says, Father Time is undefeated, and they just come to time. I mean, Stan Brock, at the end of his great career, unfortunately, this was in a playoff game. A game I was sitting there watching. The Philadelphia Eagles game. Reggie White just threw him like a rag doll, and here's a 13-year vet. He'd been there since 1980. And in this game, Reggie White just totally abused him. He played for another year with the San Diego Chargers, got a championship ring, at least AFC championship ring. But, yeah, it was time. It was time. So that's what I was talking about earlier when we were talking about Avery Young. My fantasy offensive line setup will be Armstead, Young, Unger, Turner, Landon Turner, one of the other undrafted free agents, and then Pete.
Sure.
Because Pete cannot compete with Strief for that right tackle job if he's got to play the right guard. And right now it looks like he's the leader for the right guard position, and that's the problem. We really need him to be the right tackle, and we really need these other guys to step up and beat out Lolito and Clemente to be the guards.
Sure.
I can't see Sean Payton doing that because his track record except for Jari Evans, who is probably the greatest guard ever to play for the Saints. He hasn't started anybody as a rookie.
Sure.
Even Carl Nicks, as good as he was, didn't start as a rookie. He came in after a drug suspension to the guy that was in front of him. And Streif didn't come in as a rookie. He was the third tackle.
Yeah.
You know, even Brian De La Puente, who was an undrafted center, didn't start as a rookie. They came and brought him in after Olin Kreutz was gone.
Yeah.
And then the most famous one is when Charles Brown was the left tackle, and Sean Payton said, "I've seen enough," and put Armstead in, and he's been locked in ever since.
Ever since. I still remember that game.
When we play the Rams, I don't know what happens. Somehow we transpose the current Saints with the 1973 Saints. I don't know. It's just a horrible, horrible experience with the Rams.
Okay, overall speaking, how do you like the outlook on the offense going into this training camp?
Well, I think, as long as you got Drew Brees upright and protected, he's going to score points. The whole key is, does he get protected? Drew Brees is the weakest when you can get pressure right up the A-gap, which is the gap between the center and guard. When you can get up in his face, he's only 6 foot tall if he stands on his tiptoes.
Sure.
He has to take a very deep drop so he can see downfield to make his downfield throws. If the pressure's coming up the middle, he can't do that. So you have to do what they call move him off his spot. He has to roll out and move. When that shrinks the field for him, he has fewer targets to hit. It makes it harder for this offense to work. If you go back and look at the footage from the 2011 season, or the 2009 season, when you had Evans at his peak, you had Carl Nicks in there, and you had either Jonathan Goodwin or Brian De La Puente in that center position, holding that up. You watch Drew Brees take a 7, 12-step drop sometimes, and then he starts to slide up as the pressure comes in around him. He slides up, and those guards and that center just make that perfect pocket. He steps in, makes that throw, and there's Colston or Graham or, Henderson, anyone downfield wide open, because those late developing routes can open up that way. And that's the whole key to his offense. Drew has to be able to step up and make those throws.
The scary thing to me, of course, you can say this probably about any player in the world, obviously, but with a 36, 37-year-old quarterback, the end of the fantasy is always just one hit away.
Yeah. We saw that against Tampa.
Yeah, sure. And that happened early in that happened in, like, if I'm not mistaken, the second drive of the game when Brees took that shot from Martin?
Yeah. And, very average defensive end.
Yeah. And he finished the game, but from that moment all the way through the rest of the game, it looked like something had ruined the alignment, so to speak. It was number 9 out there, but it wasn't Drew Brees.
Look, I'm an old school television show fan, and I'm convinced that Dr. Andrews is really Rudy Wells of the $6 Million Man fame, and he gave Drew a bionic arm because that arm is stronger than it ever was at Purdue or San Diego.
Absolutely.
And, if that bionic arm gets damaged, it throws off the whole thing. And if you look at the Saints' offense, the way Drew reads defense is always deep to middle to short. He's looking deep the whole time. He's looking downfield the whole time for the big play. Then he goes to the middle, and then he's looking for the dump-off. If he has to constantly go to the dump-off each time, that affects the play calling that Sean Payton's going to do.
Sure.
And you saw that also with the injury. Now he has to go shorter. Now we're looking at more screen passes. Now we're looking at more underneath dump-off, those bubble screens, those little flare-out patterns and things like that, because Drew doesn't have the time to wait for those late developing routes to open up. So, The whole key to this offense is that offensive line. Can it develop? Because I think we have the skill players. It's can this offensive line protect Drew?
It's all like you just said. It's all gonna boil down to is Brees gonna be able to do what he does, and that's directly dependent on that offensive line doing what they're supposed to do.
Right, right. So that's the key battle. Out of all the battles we talked about on offense, that's the key. Who is the starting five? Defense, defense. It's Groundhog Day. Every year we're talking about the defense and what is the defense going to do? Where's the pass rush going to come from? Who are the linebackers? Are they going to make plays? What about the secondary? And we could start right away looking at that defensive line. We've drafted Sheldon Rankins. He's a three-technique by nature player. We signed Nick Fairley, who's another three-technique guy. And what a three-technique guy means is basically he's the nose tackle kind of position of the defensive line if we're doing a three-man front. So a lot of people are saying things like, well, we'll get Rankins and Fairley playing side by side. Well, you really can't, not in the base defense, because they play the same position.
Yeah.
You need another defensive tackle, a big defensive tackle, kind of eat up that gap next to him. So, we're going to look more like John Jenkins or I can't think of his name right now. They call him the Rhino. Hang on, I'll look at his name right now.
Richardson?
Yes, Sheldon Richardson. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Tyler Davidson. Thank you, Tyler Davidson. Richardson's the end.
Yeah.
Tyler Davidson. That's going to be kind of the rotation there. It doesn't mean Rankins and Fairley won't be on the field together, because the good thing about Rankins is he can play the three technique. He can play the end. He can kind of be moved around as various chess pieces. So if the Saints were to go to their NASCAR package, as I like to call it, with all fast defensive linemen on the field, you could possibly see Rankins on one end, Cam Jordan moved inside next to Fairley, and then, one of the jack players or pass rushers on the far end coming in, and that would be a possible alignment.
We were discussing this earlier today. Have you seen any recent photos of Fairley?
Yes, I have. He looks a lot thinner.
What are your expectations for him going into this season with us, as opposed to the time he was in Detroit as well as St. Louis?
Well, Detroit, he was affected by weight and health.
Sure.
He had a bad foot a couple times. He had a bad knee. You're playing next to Sue, so he's kind of overshadowed a little bit. I think the Rams showed how to kind of use him for right now. You kind of have to rotate him in for special packages like third down pass rusher, things like that. As far as what we can get out of him, it depends on what he puts in. Kevin Williams last year, we got him. He was 90 years old or whatever, and he ended up being one of the best defensive linemen because he was great on early downs. He could really stuff the run, but he wore down quickly because of his age, because of his weights. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not hanging my hat on Fairley. I just want Fairley to come in, rotate, and be a good player when it's time for him to play.
Just make a contribution.
Right. One of our biggest problems with John Jenkins, for example, is Jenkins lets himself get lazy and out of shape. He doesn't get down low enough. And if you remember the Baltimore Ravens game from 2014, they just shoved him all over the place. He would stand there and he would just get under his pads and just push him. You can't win. A defensive lineman has to be the low man all the time. Get under the pad, stab that offensive lineman up, and just shove him back into the quarterback. So hopefully Rankins kind of motivates Fairley. I'm counting a lot on Rankins. Rankins has to be a 3-down player. He has to be on that field all the time because last year Cam Jordan was a one-man show. You had
Sure.
Cam Jordan and 3 guys. It didn't matter who the heck they were. They weren't going to be
a lot of times it wasn't even the same 3 from one play to the next.
Right, because they're trying to mix and match whoever they could to make something happen.
The point being, there's no way to establish any kind of continuity playing that way.
Right, and now with the defensive end position, they were counting a lot on Kihaka to come in and be that kind of that elephant, jack, whatever they want to call that position. It really goes back, and I'm going to do a little history here. It really goes back to the old Miami Dolphins 53 defense, which they called it 53 because Doug Swift, that was his jersey number. Just like the 46, that was Doug Plank, that was his jersey number. That's where that number comes from. But basically, he would come in as a designated pass rusher and could either stand up or put his hand in the dirt, and his job was to go after the quarterback. So it wasn't quite a 4-3 defense, and it wasn't quite a 34 defense. It was kind of a unique combo, and that's what we have here. We have 4 guys basically competing as that stand-up, hand in the dirt kind of defensive end hybrid linebacker. So Davis Tull, I can never say this man's name, Gwacham.
Obum
Gwacham. Yes. Oh, wait there, hear me butcher the other one's name. Kassim Edebali.
You want me to get it?
Yes, please. Edebali. Thank you.
Kassim Edebali.
See, I can write these names. I can't pronounce them.
I practice.
There you go. But that's the people you have in the mix there to kind of take Kihaka's place as the designated pass rusher. Who wins that battle? Who is going to be the 3rd down guy? Who could even play the first 2 downs? Because Bobby Richardson kind of has that job right now in the base 4-3 defense. But who can play both the run and the pass? That's going to be the real challenge for Bobby Richardson. So Cam Jordan, you have him locked in on one side, but who fills in that 4th spot on the other end? That's key. So there's a lot of shifting, a lot of moving. Dennis Allen's going to have his hand full trying to figure out who the best 4 guys I'm going to have on that line. And then, your linebackers, I know at least 2 of those guys can also play linebacker. When do we shift to a 34 defense? When we shift into a 43 defense? Depending on the opponent and the situation, because sometimes we might even have a safety coming in playing linebacker. So
sure.
I think the other day I said it was like a jigsaw puzzle, but you have no idea what the final picture looks like. You just got a bunch of pieces that are all black, and it could be the beach at night for all you know, but it's just these black pieces that you're trying to piece together, and they look like they can fit each way. And that's what the defense is going to be like. So it's going to be hard to determine what a scheme is going to be. You're just going to see a lot of personnel coming in and out.
Does Dannell Ellerbe stay healthy this year?
Does Dannell Ellerbe stay healthy for a game? That's what I want to see first.
And then 2 games. And
yes.
Then maybe 3.
That's right.
All jokes aside, and maybe I'm alone in this mode of thinking, but statistically speaking, you can go back and look over the games that Ellerbe actually was a significant part of, and
he was the only linebacker. He was the only linebacker you had. I mean, honestly,
there was a marked difference in this just on the stat.
Because you had an NFL linebacker out there playing. This
is the guy that was drafted by the Baltimore Ravens to replace Ray Lewis.
But the thing is, last year, and I know people rip on the Joe Vitt and they rip on the coaches and things, but last year and the year before, you really did not have NFL caliber linebackers out there. You haven't had them since the days of Vilma, Fujita, and Shanley.
Sure.
Curtis Lofton, good, solid linebacker, but he makes all his tackles downfield. He doesn't make his tackles. He's not an impact player on the other side of the line of scrimmage making the tackle. But last year, you really did not have NFL caliber linebackers out there playing unless Ellerby came out there and played. That's why it looks so different.
Yeah.
If you're out there now, and God, I love Rich Marty. I know the man. I met his family. Michael Marty is a guy. He's going to give you 100% of his heart, his soul. He loves football. He's just not talented. And he got exposed last year, especially in that Tennessee game. He cannot make the plays he needs to make. He's going to give you 110%, but he's just not talented enough. Stephon Anthony.
Was that Marty being called on? Wasn't that just a testament to how
absolutely
how bad our depth was?
Oh, absolutely. Michael Marty is a special teams linebacker. He's the guy you want out there because he's going to run around 100 miles with his hair on fire and hit anything that moves.
Well, but he proved that in the Atlanta game.
Well, sure, exactly.
He showed his worth for the New Orleans Saints in that Atlanta game when he blocked that punt and scored a touchdown on it.
Yeah, I mean,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, you need guys like that because
Bill Belichick made a career out of that.
Exactly, guys who are less talented tend to push the more talented players because they're like, look at this guy. He is making every tackle. He is out there busting his butt. What's my excuse? Why am I not making plays? And I was going to say, Stephon Anthony, good linebacker, but you could see all season he was thinking. He had to second guess himself. You asked him to make the calls. He has to read the defense, and he has to go out there and make a play. And too many times you could see he didn't trust what he was seeing. I watched 2 games in particular where he checked out of a defense and made the defense shift. And this was one in the Tennessee game. You can see Tennessee runs the play right where he just checked out of that defense and shifted. They just opened up a lane. They went in. So you didn't get to see the explosion. You didn't get to see enough of the anticipation, all the talent that Stephon Anthony really has because he was thinking too much about what he was doing. And I think that's why you brought in.
Who gets the credit for that? Is that a Rob Ryan?
No, I mean that's
that it matters. I'm just curious.
It's a rookie learning curve. And you don't have that.
I guess what I'm asking is, did we just put too much on his plate as a rookie to expect him to go and be all things to all this football team when we should have?
If you're going to put all this on his plate, he needs to have a Scott Fujita kind of linebacker playing next to him. Somebody who's been in the league for a long time and understands it, is more of a cerebral player than a hitter who can sit there and be the sounding board for Anthony. He didn't have that, and I think that's why Laurinaitis is there. We bring in Laurinaitis.
I was just to ask you, does Laurinaitis fit into that mode?
Oh, absolutely. Look, Laurinaitis is not nearly as talented as Anthony in the middle, but Laurinaitis has been in the league for a while. He knows the game. He's seen almost everything. So you're not going to get that hesitation, and you're going to have somebody in the locker, in the meeting room, that has seen it all and can tell him, hey, look, when you're looking at this play, watch this guy. Look what he does here. That's your key. Read that. Don't fall for this. Look at this happening here. Watch this alignment. They do this out of this alignment. These kind of things where his keys are instant. He's read his keys. He's good to go. Boom. Make a play. Okay? And you didn't have that last year because last year you could see we were putting linebackers out there. He had 2 rookies out there because you had Kihaka playing the strong side. You had Anthony in the middle. Then you would have, I hate saying subpar, but you'd have non-NFL caliber linebackers playing that weak side
Yeah.
position unless Ellaby was there. Okay?
And that
Ellaby
accounts
wasn't on
for
the field.
about 3 games.
Right. And that's why when Ellaby was there, suddenly it looked a lot better because now you had somebody in there that Anthony could rely on to make a play because he's not only watching for us, he's watching the alignment, he's watching, who's on the strong side. He's trying to see everything. That's too much thinking for a guy.
Sure.
Vilma was a master at it. We kind of got spoiled with Jonathan Vilma. He's a master at it. He knew it was going to happen before it happened. Sam Mills was the same way. That's why they were the 2 best middle linebackers in Saints history.
The first Legends of the Fall article that I ever wrote was on Sam Mills.
Right. And hey, that brings us right into the last line of defense, defensive backs. Now that you don't have Brandon Browner in there, you're not giving up 15 to 30 yards possession and penalties anymore. You've got Devin Breaux.
15 to 30 yards a play.
Yeah, right. You've got Devin.
Actually, that cost the Saints organization to get loose of Browner. But I applaud Sean Payton for taking that hit for the betterment of the team. I think that the decision that he made to say enough is enough, you cannot help our organization, you got to go.
Right.
I think he made the right move there.
You
were
forced to.
I personally, I at the time felt he should have got 2 bus tickets, one for Browner and one for Spiller. But
well, and this goes back a little ways now. Spiller, he was supposed to be that joker, that Reggie Bush, Darren Sproles kind of back, and it starts off bad with him having a knee injury, and then he never really produces. He has that one play against Dallas. The rest of the time, you watch him, he is got alligator arms with passes over the middle. You do a pitch out wide. Instead of him turning upfield, he's heading towards the sidelines.
All the hype that I heard on Spiller coming in was this guy is going to be astronomical for you guys. Basically the same type hype I heard from Jairus Byrd coming in. Both coming from the Bills. I think this is some sort of conspiracy from Orchard Park, but, I digress. My friend Nick would like that.
Well, don't forget Jabari Greer came from Buffalo too, so we got one of 3 that was really good.
Well,
so
1 out of 3 ain't bad, I guess.
Yeah, well, the Spiller and Byrd both. I got to listen to some guys who cover the Bills for a living, and both of them said that those guys, the Bills let them go because they were on the cusp of becoming that declining player. Both of them coming off of injuries, and both of them really, in the Bills' mind, kind of saw their best days behind them. And I think the Saints got burned with Jairus Byrd because Sean Payton's been looking for another Darren Sharper. I'll wash my mouth out later, but sorry, the guy was a great player.
He was. I do not condone or.
Well, you can't. But the man was a turnover machine.
But if you want to know the honest truth, in my humble opinion, 2009 never happens without Darren Sharper.
Oh no,
the Saints team.
You don't win a Super Bowl without Darren Sharper. You
Absolutely.
don't.
You don't even make that run without Darren Sharper.
No, because
now what he did after the fact was deplorable.
Sure.
And I think he deserves everything that he's getting because of that and more.
Right.
But and I feel the same way about Pete Rose. What he did does not change.
You want to talk about what he did on the field. When we're talking about what he did on the field, that's what Sean Payton's been looking for since 2009. He wanted Byrd because Byrd was the current active interception leader, and he wants somebody who's going to steal possessions for his offense, get those turnovers, score defensive touchdowns, get my offense the ball back, and we're going to bury this other team. and he thought Jerry's Bird was going to be his next Darren Sharper, and Bird hasn't been that way. He has got a broken down player with a bad back, with bad knees, who doesn't like contact, who they've got him now playing center field, where he's not involved in the game. Yeah, he's a frustrating player to watch, and I think that's why they drafted Bell from Ohio State, because Bell is yet another player who gets a lot of turnovers, and Sean Payton is still looking for that safety who's a ball hawk.
If Bell makes the transition to the professional game quickly, and he's able to start picking up on things, do we cut loose of Bird?
Not this year, no. Not this year.
Not during this season. No, I mean, like, if you and I are sitting here having this conversation a year from now, do we talk about Bird in past tense?
Yes. A year from now, you're talking about Bird in the past tense. I think a year from now, you can talk about Bird in the past tense regardless.
Really?
Yeah, because I think this is his last year. They can afford the cap hit next year. I know it's significantly less than it is right now, but yeah, they're ready to part ways with Bird. They see that they made a mistake. They just can't afford to admit it right now. The other safety position, we'll have to go through this rather quickly right now. Vaccaro, that's your other starting safety. They want him roaming a lot more, I think, so you're going to see more of those three safety alignments like you saw in 2013 if everyone stays healthy. Roman Harper is going to be back in there in the mix as your linebacker slash safety. They're going to put him in the box a lot more, because if you look at Greg Williams, when Greg Williams had Roman Harper had like 6 sacks in 2011, I think. Something outrageous like that for a safety. He wants Harper up near that line where he can blitz. He can be the run stuffer. You don't want him in coverage. You certainly don't want him covering a tight end. So Harper is there for 2 reasons. Number one, again, leadership in the locker room, leadership in that film room, explain to those young safeties, what are you seeing? Because Bird wasn't the leader they wanted him to be. And somebody on the field who's a physical presence. You don't have that presence right now. Vaccaro can do it somewhat, but they need that third safety in there.
Sure.
And, the other position, the cornerback position, I mean, you've got Devin Breaux locked in there. You've got now, I should have mentioned him too in the safeties, you've got the kid from the CFL, another player out of the CFL, who Eric Harris, who the Saints are very high on. Where does he fit in? Is he going to be the strong safety? Is he going to be a free safety? How are they going to use him? And then the number 2 cornerback spot is up for grabs, because you basically have 3 guys fighting for that job. You've got Keenan Lewis, P.J. Williams, and Damian Swann. And all 3 of those guys are coming off of injuries. Lewis with the knee and the herniated hip, yeah. P.J. Swann had that torn, what was it? It was torn hamstring he had gotten, and Swann, it was the 3 concussions. So where do those 3 fit in? How does that shake out? Who ends up being the starter? I know a lot of people want P.J. Williams to be the starter, but I think Lewis will probably get it, and it'll be his job to lose. And then you've got a bunch of young guys thrown in the mix there and see where they fall in special teams. I'm really high on Devontae Harris. I'd like to see what he has to do.
And Trey Elston as well.
Yeah. So
I had 5 undrafted free agents making the final 53.
Mm-hmm.
I think 3 of them were offensive linemen, and the other 2 was Devontae Harris and Trey Elston.
It'll be interesting to see how this works out, because now we're talking about special teams. Where does Dixon fit in there? He's a great special teams player. You don't want him out there covering anybody, but you need him on special teams. where does he and his brother fit in? Which I think he's actually the one that's the real keeper. Um,
We
uh,
we we need to
Brian
see if
Dixon.
Drew Brees can kick.
No, we don't need to see if Drew Brees can kick. We just need to
Well, he
find
can't be any
another
worse than
kicker.
some of them.
I think we're paying for Morton Anderson. Really, I think we're paying for all those years we had Morton Anderson because we
Karma?
cannot. Yeah, we can, and I don't believe in karma, but yeah, I think the football gods are just trying to balance out the averages and are not granting us another Doug Bryan kind of kicker.
Yeah.
Because really, if you look at the history of the kicker with Sean Payton, actually the history of the kicking position since we let Morton Anderson go over $1 million, which is unfathomable, but
Yeah.
that was the end of the Mora years.
I think
We've had
Mora had a breakdown of some sort. You listen to some of those press conferences? Yeah, Mora lost touch with reality a little.
Diddley Poo. That's still one of my all-time favorites.
We
No,
suck.
I mean, oh God, that was. I think. Well, is that your wall? No. Okay.
Okay,
Right.
we're good.
Good.
See, my camera likes Jim Mora. That's all.
There you go. Well, that was a Jim Moore moment, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, we've had a revolving door of kickers. Doug Bryan probably gave us the greatest amount of stability there. He was good for about 5 years. Then John Carney came in. He was good for about 4.5, 5 years because you had that time where Sean Payton tried to upgrade from him and brought in Olindo Mare and then realized, hey, I screwed up. I brought him back. And then he, 2009 midseason, he starts getting erratic, and they go in with Garrett Hartley, and it just keeps going from there.
Garrett Hartley would have been fine. He just lost his
God.
confidence.
I tick off a couple of diehard Garrett Hartley fans. If you really look at Hartley's statistics, if you really look at his career, he happened to hit a groove at the most important time in Saints history. He hit that groove from after the Tampa miss through the playoffs and the Super Bowl, and then the first few games of the 2010 season. Then he got erratic again. And then 2011 he was gone the whole year, so you had Casey in there. So with Hartley, you never really had that full season where you realize he really is a box of chocolates. He hit a 45-yarder, and then they go inside 25 and the ball's going this way. And you're like, what happened?
Yeah.
That's what I just used to call him. I said he was a box of chocolates because you never knew what you were going to get out of him. And they would bring Carney in there to try and work with him, get him into shape, get his mind right. Because kickers really are like golfers. They pick on the special teams coach about this, but a kicker, it's so much of it is a mental game.
Sure.
And you have to get in that focused mental state because they can all kick. But having that consistent motion when the leg just comes through consistently, and you had that with Morton Anderson. You didn't have that with any other kicker we've had. Really, young kickers I'm talking about that we brought in. You just don't have that consistent stroke, the consistent motion. Little things kind of throw them off. And at Hocker, you saw that. It's a bad snap, he freaked out. And he missed an extra point. So. I don't know what the solution is for kicker. I really don't. I wouldn't be surprised if neither of these guys made it. I wouldn't be surprised if Connor Barth made it. I wouldn't be surprised if Kai Farbath makes it. They're only as good as the next miss, and then it's Kicker Monday. Where you have every kicker in the world out there trying out over an airline highway.
It's Long Snapper Monday, Kicker.
Yeah.
Monday.
Long Snapper Monday, Kicker Tuesday. So, yeah, one bad long Snapper Monday. Yeah. So, I mean, Morstead is great kickoff guy, great punter. We're pretty solid there. We're pretty good on our, on a long snapper for now. And whether or not, we have who we have as a kick returner shakes out in the receiver and running back battle. special teams is the king.
So same question.
Mhm.
What's your evaluation of this defense?
If we can get to the bottom half of the 20s, 23, 20, 22, out of the bottom, I should say, you get into the low 20s, I think we have enough that we could possibly win, 10 games. This is a hard schedule.
It
Right
is.
now, last year you played the two weakest divisions. This year you're playing the two toughest, AFC West and NFC West. We don't match up well with a lot of those teams. So it's a question of what's going to happen. Who wins these training camp battles to determine how good of a team we are. We have to get off to a hot start. So we'll see. Rookies show up, Wednesday? And then the veterans
Yes.
come in
Yes.
the following week. So 7 days from now, we'll see how it goes. So, I think this was a good start. We'll see how it goes from here. But I had fun tonight. I'm glad you guys paid attention. I'm glad you guys stuck with us this long. Hopefully, you didn't hang up on us after the first 40 minutes. You stuck with us for the full hour. Appreciate all the support.
I want to thank Alan Ulrich for being with me on this. I've really enjoyed working with you, brother.
Thank
looking
you.
Forward
I'm
to,
enjoying this. I enjoy working with you.
and I want to take a moment to say a special hello to my dad, who's watching tonight.
Absolutely. If my
He's
dad,
the one. He's the one that instilled in me the love of the game.
absolutely.
And this
Absolutely.
means so much to me for him to share in this with me.
That's great. That's
We
great.
want to let you guys know that beginning next week we will be moving into our regular time slot of 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on Tuesday nights rather than Wednesday. We just did Wednesday tonight for the premiere. We want to know what you guys think. What you guys want to see. What do you want from us? You can reach us either on the Facebook page, Under the Dome Podcast is the name of the page, or you can reach us by email at underthedomepodcast@gmail.com. And once again, I want to say a special thank you to Fan First Productions, because
Absolutely.
without the fans, it's just a game for kids.
That's right.
And thank those guys for believing in us, getting behind us on our vision, and helping us see it through to where we are tonight. Thank all of you guys for tuning
Thank
in
you,
with us
guys.
tonight.
Good night, everybody. Thank y'all.
Good night. We will see you again next week on Under the Dome.